Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. Happy late New Year, as much as we can enjoy it this week. Welcome to 9. We're focusing on New Year, new discoveries. Resolutions are still kind of a buzzword right now. So we've decided to tackle Under the Tuscan Sun by Audrey Wells, released in 2003, and then 2016's directed by Mia Hansen-Løve, who, if you haven't discovered any of her films up to this point, this is an excellent starting point. She really has quite a voice to her and is quite prolific already for only being on the scene for a little bit. If you have not listened to us before, nice reminder, we are a podcast by women who love film, talking about women who make film. Each month we pick about 2 films and watch them either for the first time or we rewatch them, and then we come together mid to late month to talk about everything and anything that caught our interest about them. But before we start talking in depth about the films, we're kicking things off with our opening question, which is, since it's New Year, what film directed by a woman are you most excited to see between now and June? Gabby? And wait, here's where I mention, I'm skipping everything here. I'm joined, as always, by editor-in-chief, Gabrielle Bondi, and fellow film writer and How to Get Away with Murder wine enthusiast, AJ Chase. At least that's what I like to think in our Google Hangout chats. So now that I've gotten that passed, I'm sorry. Apparently, I still don't know how to talk a month later. Gabby, what film are you looking forward to in the next couple months?
Does Wonder Woman count?
Yeah, I mean, it's directed by a woman.
No, I'm within the timeline. Because I didn't know if you meant between like now and the end of June or now and like before June. But yeah, I think like Wonder Woman is my real. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a big movie, and it's really going to be interesting to see how it turns out, and it just looks so incredible. And I know we've all been deceived by Warner Brothers marketing in the past, but I still can't help but be really excited for it. And I really hope that, you know, it succeeds and it's really good, and it paves the way for more women, more women directing, these big genre action movies.
I agree. I feel like I get it though with the, feeling kind of slighted by the marketing. And there is that sense of burn me once, shame on you, burn me twice, shame on me. But I'm hopeful too. I just have to be.
I want it to be good.
But AJ, how about you?
I am looking forward to Everything, directed by Stella Meggy. It comes out in the middle of May. It's a film adaptation of the novel by the same name by Nicola Yoon, and that was actually her first novel. And Stella Meggy, the director of the film adaptation, I believe it's her second directorial kind of project. But I read the book and really enjoyed it, and I know we were talking about this before. The big kind of reveal or the twist in there has stirred up some controversy. So I'm excited to see how the director and the writers of the film approach that kind of turning point. And just maybe I'll like it more than I did the book. And it's always nice to see books get made into films. Any excuse to watch a movie, I'm down for.
Yeah, I know that twist you're speaking of, and
yeah,
I'm also very curious to see how they go about it. And I mean, Amanda Stenberg is in it, and she's very strongly
feminist,
proponent, and so I feel like she wouldn't sign on to something that she felt was too controversial or too problematic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm curious to see it too.
I might have to Wikipedia the twist afterwards because I'm so curious now. I don't feel like I want to wait until the movie. But I'm really bad about this. So
there was a really good essay written, and I feel like it was written by a woman, on the issues surrounding the twist. So if I can find that, I'll definitely.
Okay, do that. I'll read it and I'll tweet it out too, so everybody can take a look at it. I'm kind of going with a safe option here, and it might just be my like ongoing love for Jessica Chastain, but I'm excited to see The Zookeeper's Wife. You know, I'm a little worried because I feel like it got shuffled around, but it's Nikki Cairo, and like I adored Whale Rider. Like I think it was such a special little film, and I saw it late in life for that film. You know, I feel like that's a film that like you should see when you're younger, but I only saw it 2 years ago when I really hopped on board the 52 films a year thing. A little hokey. And there's certainly some other like smaller films directed by women that I'm excited to see, such as Love Song coming out this month. But really important these days to kind of shine a light on some of the also, you know, people aren't really paying attention if her indie love song gets a big. We'll see if, you know, Wonder Woman or Before I Fall or The Zookeeper's Wife makes a lot of money because they're bigger budgeted films. So respect to just go and support it. But I also think it could potentially be something really moving. And I feel like in these World War II dramas, we don't often see it in a female's perspective. Well, obviously, we I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I'm hopeful that it will exceed my expectations, but I'm excited to see what Jessica Chastain does. I forget about it because I feel like to the movies we did watch. So I had seen Things to Come and Under the Tuscan Sun before. I loved both, and I saw both in 2016, like coincidentally enough. So what did you guys think of the films? Just general thoughts.
Well, I've seen both of them before too, and I really like them. I think they're really, I mean, they might have similar themes, but they're very two distinct films, and they handle this kind of, you know, sudden change in an older woman's life, you know, in different ways, and especially emotionally. So yeah, I just think they're really intriguing, and I've always loved Under the Tuscan Sun. It's so dreamy, you know, and Things to Come, when I saw it about a few weeks ago, I really found myself so interested in it, and especially the philosophical stuff of it. So, yeah.
I had seen Under the Tuscan Sun a few years ago, but rewatched it, and I definitely agree. It's usually marketed as something of a kind of chick flick that's very airy and doesn't really have any deeper meaning to it. But I think there is a lot to explore, especially in terms of identity later in life, and how you're kind of either someone's wife or someone's mother, but what happens when your world is kind of turned upside down, and where does your identity go from that? And it's really nice to look at. Things to Come I hadn't seen, but I really love foreign films, and this was no exception. I think there's a lot of themes that I saw in Things to Come that exist in Under the Tuscan Sun, but they're handled in a different way, in not necessarily a better or a worse way, but just differently. And I think it's really intriguing to take two films that are so similar in thematics and how they kind of unravel differently. So yeah, I really liked both.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just going to echo you two a little bit, but really enjoyed Under the Tuscan Sun. It kind of fits the bill though of those films that I watch when you're just in need of like something emotionally fulfilling or something that makes you feel better. You know, it is a warm filmy film. You get sucked into it really quickly. But also I think Diane Lane's character is just so well crafted that like you instantly fall for her, or instantly charmed by her at least. And you're okay going along this ride with her and seeing what happens just because you find her so charismatic. And yeah, sometimes just watching these beautiful places unfold before you is comforting, to see other parts of the world. And I just thought, it wasn't so much rewriting what we've seen before, but it was taking an old style of film or an old genre and kind of just, sprucing it up a bit. Like I felt like I was watching something refreshing. In terms of things to come, I'd seen the director's films Goodbye First Love and Eden, both of which I loved, especially Eden, which ended up in my top 15 last year. And this director's 35 years old, and she has a number of films to her name. And if Things to Come doesn't put her on the map more officially, I don't really know what will, because Things to Come is one of the most beautifully crafted films I saw in 2016, and it did so by doing it quietly. But yeah, I also love the fact that it shows, and we kind of talked about this before, especially with like The Namesake, that somebody's coming of age story or somebody's story where they kind of transform who they are can happen at any point in their life. Just because we mostly associate it with being a teenager or being in your 20s, that doesn't mean that's when it happens. And I think showing somebody going through a different kind of transformation, like she isn't changing who she is at all, but like where she's going and how she's approaching her life is changing. And I think that's really interesting and really special to show on film, especially for actresses over 60, which you don't see much of. So, I mean, Things to Come is one of those films that's actually grown on me since seeing, it lingers with you. So I was a fan of both. And I imagine Things to Come is one that I'll be wanting to revisit more and more as the years go by. But yeah, so I'm glad we all liked that one. So, we kind of all said that Under the Tuscan Sun has this, there's a special nature to it because you feel like it's dreamy, as you said, it's something you can kind of escape into it. But what I think is interesting, and they're not so much flaws as there's something worth pointing out about both Under the Tuscan Sun and Things to Come, is that there is a wish fulfillment nature to both of these. Not everybody can go through a terrible breakup or go through a divorce and be able to just escape, especially like the character in Under the Tuscan Sun. Most of us have to stay, deal with it, possibly move in with our parents and just like learn how to kind of adapt. So do you think that's a detriment to the film, or do you think it's just purely cinematic?
I think it could be both. I mean, I think, well, it's kind of hard to argue if it's a detriment just because we don't get many films like this.
Yeah.
So like, you don't want them to go away. That's my logic there. At the same rate, I mean, yeah, it does. It's not very realistic. I mean, we all can't run away to Tuscany after a bad relationship and like, oh, what, I'll buy a villa. Like, why not? I mean, I think changing your life's direction like that so dramatically requires, very,
money.
very, big pockets. And many of us don't have that. But I think, I think it's also a bit of like an escapism and like wish fulfillment that, you can just watch a story unfold. And I mean, like I call it dreamy just because it's literally like the dream,
Yeah.
And to kind of have a life like that, to be able to do something like that where money's not an issue and you could just go live in Italy.
Yeah.
Why not?
I definitely agree. And this just might be my nanny background that that prompted this, but I couldn't stop thinking about that line from Finding Nemo. You have to go through it, not over it. And I think in some aspects, I know this is a very convoluted comparison.
No, I'm thinking it's pretty fantastic.
But certain aspects of these films go over the issue rather than going through it. But I do agree in the way that there is a little bit of wish fulfillment, and it definitely doesn't take into account the realities of everyday life, that escaping a certain situation isn't always an option. It usually isn't an option. But in some aspects, I guess maybe if we look at the films as kind of psychological representations of kind of sorting through a problem, it might just be a projection, like taking Under the Tuscan Sun and considering it a dream. And even though it is kind of cliched to frame a story within, oh, it's all just a dream. But maybe angling it from that kind of perspective might make it seem a little bit more grounded in reality. Kind of the working through of an issue to the highest degree, as far as your brain can take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do still love the films, even though there are some kind of issues with the wish fulfillment, and it not being.
No, I mean,
yeah,
I absolutely love these films, and like I really don't see it as a detriment either. But I
Yeah.
was just thinking about it, like would some people watch it and just kind of scoff, like even like other female viewers, let's like set aside, the general disdain for films like Under the Tuscan Sun, like, there is a sense of privilege that goes along with these characters. And I don't necessarily think it's a detriment at all, because again, I really, truly, especially adored Things to Come. But I think it's interest to look at it through that world view, of like, we do kind of have to put aside our personal realities to watch and enjoy.
Yeah.
Because we could, like, especially, the former, just because we watch it, we're like, well, wouldn't that be amazing? And I think that's part of the charm of the film, and I think it's probably also something that turns people off, which kind of goes into my next point, which, I've brought up this film to other people, and they just go, oh, I'm sick of those films where, the woman gets jilted and then they go fly off and they have a whole new life. And usually the comparison is Eat, Pray, Love. It's the Eat, Pray, Love syndrome. And do you think films like that, which kind of come off a little patronizing to me personally, like just because it does seem silly for like the Julia Roberts character when she like flies off and has all these experiences, but granted I haven't read the book or anything, but is it just people kind of grouping all these films together? It's probably more than we realize. I just don't think there's a lot directed by women. And I think that greatly changes things, because I think the emotions that Julia Roberts' character goes through in Eat, Pray, Love are a little bit more fabricated, almost, than Diane Lane, where I feel like, even like I posted a little gif of her on Twitter earlier. She's bored and doing the blinking thing where things come in and out of focus, and it's such a small moment. It's like really quite a small moment, but it's one that resonated because it felt real. Even if she did go off and jet off and get this great life first, she still gets bored.
Yeah.
So like I do wonder if there's like, people are grouping them together nuances. However, if you guys both loved Eat, Pray, Love, I'm very sorry for just going against it.
No, I personally, I did not enjoy Eat, Pray, Love. I had not read the memoir, but saw the film. And I think the difference between films like Under the Tuscan Sun and Things to Come, it might be, the directorial decision, as we've talked about in a couple of episodes of the podcast. Having a female director, they can usually navigate emotional kind of triumphs and troughs in a way that male directors tend to overshadow. And I'm not generalizing, but yeah, sometimes sometimes it's just like under the rug with the dudes. But in Eat, Pray, Love, a lot of it felt premeditated. Her decision to, I'm going to go here to do this, or maybe I can go here to do this. It was kind of all like planned out and mapped out with an intent. And I think in the films that we watched for this episode, it was a little more natural. Obviously, there is still a problem and kind of, I want to go away, or I want to go here to give myself breathing room. But things kind of progressed naturally. And then in Eat, Pray, Love, it was more there was more of an intent and kind of an itinerary of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember if I liked that movie or not.
Well, no, it's just like, it's a thing that I feel like, because I do think when people use the wish detriment, it's because I do think they're grouping these kind of films together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's worth surprise viewing a film as its own entity, no matter its genre.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, it's like people dismissing it as like a chick film or a chick flick,
mm-hmm.
and using that as a derogatory term, despite the fact that there's been some amazing films that would fall under that labeling. It's just because people have seen one bad one and they assume everything's going to be like that. So that was kind of my point with the whole detrimental thing. And also, Eat, Pray, Love's by Ryan Murphy, so I don't really know what we were expecting. So, I mean, I think it would be remiss to talk about these two films and not talk about Diane Lane and Isabella Huppert's roles in them, because it could be argued that with different actresses, the films wouldn't have worked as well. I especially think it's interesting to point out that Diane Lane is, 51, and Isabelle Huppert is 63. And Isabelle Huppert is arguably having the best year of her career, and Diane Lane played Superman's mom. And
Martha, okay.
Yeah, right? She has become a buzzword or like a meme, and it just it shouldn't blow my mind, because we talk about this each week about the discrepancy between the opportunities male actors get to female actors. But you see that, and you see the opportunities Huppert is getting, and you have to wonder again, and we've talked about French cinema, age and be flawed more readily than Hollywood. And even a different example is the fact that Robert Downey Jr. is like 52 and playing Iron Man. Martha. So I don't know if you guys wanted to talk a little bit about the two performances, or maybe touch upon the age thing.
I definitely think the age thing is valid, because it's just so, it's just so apparent in Hollywood. There's only like a handful of actresses that they go to play older women, and one of them is always Meryl Streep, and
and the other's Helen Mirren.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like between those two, it's like that's who you're gonna get, and it is unfair, because especially when we've talked about this before, but people like Jennifer Lawrence playing mothers, 40 years old. There really is no reason for that. And so I think it's just like a general Hollywood ageist and sexist problem that they have. But I do agree, this is a big year for Isabelle Huppert, and she's just phenomenal, and I think she has done phenomenal work, and it's nice to see her finally kind of get her little limelight, her little spotlight moment, because she deserves it, and I hope she keeps it. But unfortunately, as we know, it fades, it goes away, because again, Hollywood is Hollywood.
Yeah.
But they're sorry, I didn't mean to go on a Hollywood rant there.
I poked you into it,
but as far as performances, I think I love Diane Lane is just so good in Under the Tuscan Sun. She just is she's like a sun in that movie. She's so bright and beautiful and shining, and even when she's sad and devastated, she's just so beautiful. She's one of those performers that I always felt performed beautifully. It made her even more beautiful. I don't know. It's just it's something about her, and I think she positively shines in Under the Tuscan Sun. And with Isabelle Huppert, I hate using this word to describe her character, but I think a lot of people would say frigid, just the way that she's maybe not frigid, but cold. She's not as emotional, but at the same time, she's not unlikable. You understand why she is the way she is and how philosophical and thoughtful. She likes to think about things before she kind of reacts to them. So I think she does that so well in that film, because you could see, the wheels turning in her head as these developments happen to her. So yeah.
I agree about I think a good word for it would be almost like she's playing a very intellectual character, not
I
that
hate using those words. I just couldn't think of them.
Well, that's why, 'cause I get what you mean, and I'm trying to think of it too. But that's why I think one of my favorite moments in the movie is when she's on the bus and she sees her ex-husband with a new woman, and she starts laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so charming and real, and it was kind of a first instance of her kind of letting her guard down. But I think pragmatic might be it too, she everything has a place and she has a plan, and when she goes off course for those plans, she ends up in awkward situations. And I just think, I can't even get over how great she was. And I think Diane Lane is actually one of those performers that are kind of underrated, because what she brings to the table seems so effortless. She does light up the screen, and because she's not doing anything overtly technical, you're not thinking much about how great her performance is. But it's kind of like a Marissa Tomei thing, where really enliven her surroundings. But AJ, I might have cut you off. So
two just quick things, because I feel like you guys have said it a lot more eloquently than I could have.
About that on my part.
About the age thing, there was an editorial kind of investigative piece published a few years ago with Vulture. I think it was leading men age, leading ladies don't, or love interests don't, something along those lines. If I can find it, I will also send that to you. It's a chart of all the very popular actors in Hollywood, showing them aging throughout their films.
Oh, yeah.
And their love interests. It kind of
getting younger.
They kind of stay the same or get younger. So that was just my point about the age thing. It's yucky, and I don't like it. About the performances, fantastic, and I do think they show the complexity of women who can be likable, but they don't have to be one certain way. And I think just bringing to the table realistic portrayals of women, especially older women, especially rediscovering themselves after something so life-changing. It's just really nice. And I definitely agree that they're both tremendous actresses, and I want more of them. Please, I'm greedy.
I know, it makes me want to go through Isabelle Huppert's filmography now, kind of find the gems. And before we kind of move on from the actresses, I know you two haven't seen Elle. Gabby, I know that you know what it's about.
Yeah. No, thank you.
AJ, I'm not sure if you ended up reading about it. I watched it just because, I do those good. So I watched Love It. Critics that loved it. It's kind of, me watch it. If all the female critics I read it hated it, I probably would have, because it is about rape, and it's about a violent rape, and about how a woman doesn't necessarily react the way you would think she does. And I just felt sick the entire time. And I thought it was aggressively misogynistic. I thought that people who liked it because it wasn't, there is a lot of shock value to it. And I mean, it's by the guy who did Basic Instinct and Showgirls. So people like to like it for its absurdity and its in your face abrasiveness. And as a woman, I was repelled by it. I thought it was repugnant. I thought it was obscene, and I thought I thought Isabelle Huppert was great. Yes, but I thought she was even better in Things to Come. And of the two films to celebrate, one of which is very misogynistic and one of which is hugely feminist, I am just astounded that people haven't rallied behind Things to Come. So that's just my little soapbox moment. Because, there's a chance now that Isabelle Huppert might be nominated for an Oscar. And, while that's great for the performer, I'm so saddened that it's for this film. And yeah, and people are starting to come out more and talk about how they didn't like Elle, and I just wish we had heard more of that rally before. And I wouldn't recommend it to either you. I think you read it, but watch it. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, I had not.
That just to get that out of.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, I didn't watch it just because I knew what happened, and I'm like, I'd rather not. It just doesn't feel like a movie I would enjoy, and I generally just, if I have to force myself to watch something that I heard wasn't great, why do it?
Yeah. I had only heard a one sentence kind of synopsis about kind of what it's about. But yeah, I don't have any intentions of watching it.
Yeah, it's a smart move. I feel like I wish I could get those hours of my life back.
It's a hard pass for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Just rewatch this. Gears completely and talk about better things. One of the last talking points I personally had was, and we've talked about the dreamy atmosphere and everything, and I think it lends to this about how overtly romantic these films are without necessarily relying on, there's the friendship in Under the Tuscan Sun and the love of the two best friends and the natural beauty that surrounds her. In Things to Come, there's this appreciation for philosophy and nature, writing and deep thinking, and even her relationship with her mother and her cat. Eventually, there's a warmth to it that comes from a woman rediscovering herself and her life, and that was purposeful. In both regards, to show that there is things to fulfill your life with, past a romance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that you see that. I mean, I think it's a lot more overt in Under the Tuscan Sun, just because it uses kind of these classic Hollywood themes to kind of show that off. But I also like the little romantic moments in Things to Come. I think one scene that always that really stuck with me is when her daughter had her baby, and she's holding the baby, and her daughter starts sobbing, because she wants the baby back. And I just think it's such first of all, I think it's a moment in a film that you wouldn't see if it wasn't directed by Mia Hansen-Løve. So I think that, first of all, spoke out to me, and I think it's just so simple to show that little moment of, a change in your life, especially that's so specific to womanhood.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking off of the romantic elements in Things to Come that aren't necessarily kind of romantic. I know that you had mentioned kind of the philosophical aspects of the film and kind of the love of writing. There's one line, and I know that I'm gonna butcher it. When Natalie's student comes to see her and they're having a conversation, and she says something along the lines of, "I'm fulfilled intellectually. It's not that serious, or it's not that big of a deal," referring to kind of everything that happens. That aspect really resonated with me, in terms of there is this big romantic aspect of finding herself and finding these thread lines to the other people in her life that, she's kind of rediscovering this. But the fact that even though she was very devastated and she thought that the marriage was fine and that the love was going to last forever. She can still find romance in wisdom and in other channels that still fulfill her.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, and I just, that was the romance aspect that I kind of connected with, and it might be a bit of a stretch, but
no, I don't think so at all, because that was like her passion.
Mm-hmm.
That
and
was
like,
one of her true loves.
And like you got that passion more with that in her like finding like sparks in like in learning and
Mm-hmm.
that than ever with her husband. And I always got the sense that with her husband it was more of a comfortable thing.
Yeah.
You know, because that's how things were and that's how she was used to them. And yet, you know, relating to the title even, the things to come that were going to impassion her were things she still had yet to learn. And I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, no, I don't think that's a reach at all. I think that might have been the point of the film. Like,
I'm glad.
But
I didn't want to ramble.
Yeah, no. I'm here, doing whatever we need to do. But yeah, no, I just because those are two things, you know, the romantic energy of both films, or the sweeping kind of epic nature of both, which is going to relate to something, AJ, that you wanted to talk about later about the passage of time. Both gave the films a larger than life feeling. And Gabi, I'm really happy that you mentioned that scene with her having her baby, because that is such a specific moment that you don't see in film, and it is so specific to womanhood that it's kind of special to see it and to kind of understand that, like, so those were all my talking points, but I know you two had a couple this week. So Gabi, I don't know if you wanted to start with your first one about the main characters.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on it a bit already, but it basically like just how the main characters react very differently to finding out about their husbands, you know, cheating and leaving them. And I think it's kind of nice to see it break that stereotype, because we're kind of used to women being portrayed as overly emotional, sometimes vengeful, you know, all these like kind of cliched stereotypes that Hollywood has kind of pushed forward in its stories about the jilted woman. And I think, you know, why these movies are so important is that it shows that, you know, they're more than just who their husband was. You know, they're their own person, and they're able to get past that. And you could be really upset and devastated and want to run away to another country and buy a villa. Or, you know, you can find solace in your work and your passions and work through it that way. And, you know, that's what I liked about these two films, is that it shows kind of the diversity of female emotions, that we're not all the same, which is so important to impart.
Yeah, you know, and it really is. And I think the word jilted is so good to use, because that is what we see oftentimes when women are broken up with or cheated on in these films. And with the term jilted comes this idea also that, like, they're usually portrayed almost as if they deserved it. You know, there's something not great about their characterization. Whereas these two women, you know, were just blindsided. And like, I don't even care if people show strong emotions. You know, one of my favorite moments in a film the last couple of years has been directed by a woman, The Dish and the Spoon. And Greta Gerwig plays a character who's been cheated on, and her response is angry and like like guttural type anger, but at least it was done honestly. And it, like, you know, I can buy those emotions. I can buy the emotions in these two films as long as they feel real to life, and as long as they're not just acting out of a plot convenience, you know. Like, as long as it makes sense that they're saying what they're saying, or getting mad, or like just moving on and kind of finding something else in life that fulfills them. But I do like the point that, you know, it is showcasing that not everybody's going to react the same way to that same event. And it seems like it shouldn't be a novel idea, but, you know, we see a lot of cookie cutter portraits of women in Hollywood, so it is nice.
Not everybody's going to grab the lamp off the end table and kind of throw it at the cheating husband.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Even if they deserved it.
Yeah.
But yeah. I've always liked the Anne of Green Gables method where she smashes the chalkboard over his head.
Yeah.
I thought that was an excellent response to a douchebag. But yeah, no, I thought it was a good point. I didn't think we had really touched on it that much either. But AJ, I don't know if you had more to say about that or if you wanted to go about the kind of arcs, the overall arcs of the story.
Yeah, I think that would be nice kind of segue from this point. I know that we both films we all loved. And I was kind of thinking about the endings of each of the films. Things to Come, I felt wrapped up really nicely. And overall, it felt like a whole film. And then kind of thinking about that in terms of Under the Tuscan Sun, I had rewatched that first and then watched Things to Come. And I couldn't help feeling that the ending of Under the Tuscan Sun felt a little bit watered down, less fulfilling for the main character, for Frances. There is that nice, happy, warm, fuzzy ending and the promise of a new life, but it still is based on finding a man. She meets the writer, I believe he's a writer, at the wedding. And it's kind of that like promise. And even though it is a really nice ending, might be complicated by the fact that she has done so much self-discovery and kind of rebuilding her life on her own and in her own terms, that it might be complicated a little bit. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and see if you guys felt that the ending was maybe kind of less fulfilling, a little bit, kind of cheapens her character a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree to that to an extent, just because, you know, she finally did get what she wanted, like the wedding at her house and love and everything, and it could have ended right there, right before the guy, you know, stumbled upon her asking her, but I guess because then it would have showed that she felt fulfilled and happy without a man. Like, she didn't need it. She was happy with herself. And that's what, you know, and that's fulfilling in itself. That should be something that women should get from it. Not that, you know, okay, you know, do all this hard work and then you'll get the dude at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought it was funny that you showed watered down, because at the end,
yeah,
I was like,
that's why I chose it. Yeah.
Oh, finally!
I was like, I know they're gonna pick up on that.
With the faucet running, finally, it's like literally
watered down.
Yeah. You know, I agree to an extent. I also think it's the difference between a Hollywood film and a foreign film. You know, like they gave it a Hollywood ending. Everything's neat and tidy. Because people, I've come to realize, don't like ambiguous endings and like really dislike them. And I think this was a way to pacify those people.
Yeah.
Even if it did in the end up cheapening kind of all that she had went through and kind of learning to be happy on her own. At the very least, if they're going to do a love interest, they should have introduced it earlier rather than making it, you know, tacking it on at the end as a, hey, but don't worry, she won't be alone for long.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I do, you know, I think when you look at it like that, I think it does come down just to the nature of the machine making the film. And I think that's a very, very Hollywood thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing with any romantic comedy that ends with them all dancing on the wedding ballroom floor. Like, it's just kind of what you expect. And it's unfortunate when the film has been so enlightening and honest before then. But because I've come to expect that in Hollywood films, I wasn't so much disappointed. And I kind of forgotten about it actually until you just mentioned it, and now I'm like, oh no, like you're right.
It makes me wonder if the memoir, this writer who just shows up, if that was present in the memoir, if that was an actual thing that happened, or if it was kind of fabricated.
I was trying to Google that too, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, how much is this really based on her life? And I think the general gist I got was that she did go to Italy and randomly bought a villa and rehabbed it. But I don't know how much of the drama and and specific characters. I don't think that was I think that was fabricated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I do feel like, I think it's also kind of getting tired to attach these little happily ever after epilogues to stories. Because like even recently I read a book that ended that way, and I felt so unfulfilled by it, because I was just like, really? Like, okay, you know, they rode off into sunset and they got married and they had a kid and everyone's happy. Like, that's wonderful, but that's not real life. Like,
yeah, like I don't mind it if it's earned. You know, if it's doing just to pacify the audience that may not end up liking an ambiguous ending, that's when it pisses me off. When people are purposely ambiguous just to also piss off the audience. It's just like, you need to know how to balance things, and same for any type of media. And yeah, so I would like to see that balance more in film, because I agree. I feel like we do see that tacked on happy ending a lot, especially in this type of film where they want to appeal to a bigger audience. But it's a good point. I really did a bad job at being a critical female viewer, because I did not pick up on that at all. Admonishing myself now. But yeah, no, I just blame Hollywood as always.
it's all their fault. It really is, though.
Yeah,
we're not just saying that.
All your fault.
But AJ, I know you had another thing that we kind of briefly spoke about before we clicked live. About the passage of time.
Yeah. In things to come, there's definitely a lengthier timeline, and we see it with the editing, kind of the screen grabs. Title cards. I'm blanking on the actual name, where it's a few years later or a year later, kind of giving us a better indication of where we are on the timeline. And then in Under the Tuscan Sun, it's a little bit more ambiguous, and things seem to move a little bit more quickly. We're not sure, what point in time it is after she arrives, specifically. And we also aren't seeing scenes of just, I guess for lack of a better word, monotony or just everyday things, usually skipping to the bigger scenes, or you're getting a montage in Under the Tuscan Sun. With things to come, you do see the progression, where some people might have just taken that out and kind of cut to the action-y parts. Time is portrayed quite differently in these films. And I was just wondering if you guys picked up on that, if you had any thoughts about how the passage of time affects any of the characters, how they're portrayed, and how their character arcs are kind of influenced by the way time is presented.
Well, I mean, not to do this again and blame Hollywood, but I think the ambiguity of time, and I think that's like a common Hollywood staple, and that's why I'm not so surprised to see it in Under the Tuscan Sun. Though I do feel like, yeah, if we saw a little bit more of the monotony, and if we kind of had a better understanding of how much time passed, because I think when you get over, especially a relationship after a shock like that, there needs to be time. It can't. You don't just heal. Healing takes time, and I think with things to come, it's more laid out. I think it's just so that you can understand better where she is at. In this place in her life, and things move a lot slowly, especially, the whole kind of little subplot with her mother. That part is kind of rolled out a little bit more slowly than I thought it would, because when I read the description of Things to Come, it kind of doled out like the main events of the movie. So I was expecting it, like in the classic Hollywood sense, to happen all in the beginning and then watch her deal with it. Whereas with Things to Come, I watched her deal with it like in separate moments in the film, it's scattered throughout. So that was what initially caught me off guard, but got me really intrigued at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and I think, like you said, things don't just heal immediately after you get a shock like that. And that's what I liked about Things to Come, is that it shows that time heals. Your wounds. It's this, it's a cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. And by showing time passing in Things to Come, it shows how she's going through each stage in her life after the event, and how it's not completely defining her, but she's like taking what she's learned and applying it to her life moving forward. And I think time is crucial to her story. I would have liked to see more definitive benchmarks in Under the Tuscan Sun, just so we kind of got an idea of how she was getting all these things done so quickly.
Exactly.
I thought like the only thing I could measure was the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Like that was it.
So it was at least 9 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like that, I think that is very important to Things to Come. I think, again, it kind of plays into the themes of the movie, as in like time passes, wounds heal, and you kind of move forward with your life, and life goes on no matter what happens. And I mean, it's worth pointing out that many people have called this the best edited film of the year. And I think by showing the passage of time so seamlessly, that's kind of indicative of why it's being called this. Because, again, I was speaking to AJ before the podcast started, that I don't, I have an eye for certain things, for certain technicalities in film, or I have an ear for things because, I'm very good at picking up things about scores that make them good. But editing, I'm kind of wishy-washy, and I only really notice if it's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
But with this film, I think, you notice how amazing the editing is because of how seamlessly every moment fits. And that comes in part to seeing the passage of time happen so naturally. But yeah, no, I think adding that to Under the Tuscan Sun only could have made it even better.
Mm-hmm.
But like we said, I'm not surprised that they didn't.
Yeah.
Because it's Hollywood, and they kind of like everything to exist in a bubble. But yeah. So I think that kind of covers our talking points, unless there was anything you two wanted to add.
No,
that I missed.
I think they did like a very thorough job.
Yeah.
Like kind of breaking down these films. I have to be honest, we really did.
And like, I think, I'd like to kind of jump onto that, to look into that a bit. I think it proves the point that people who look over things like Under the Tuscan Sun as nothing else than like chick flicks in a derogatory sense are missing out on a film that is really quite delightful and insightful into the women's experience. And
Exactly.
it's like kind of just, if you have that opinion based on a cover or a synopsis, or the fact that a woman directed it and there might possibly be romance involved, then like I'm not even interested in talking to you.
You're lost, buddy.
Yeah, well, because it's kind of just so nearsighted, like it's totally ignoring the depth that can be found in any kind of film. So yeah, no, I do think, there's a lot to take from these two films, especially together, and I think it just showcases, just like, don't judge a film based on its genre. It's ridiculous. Unless it's a really scary horror, and then I won't watch it. But there's exceptions to every rule. But thank you, everybody, for joining us again. And know that we're now on Twitter at Finding Her Voice. Convenient. You can find me at Allison AJ. And where can you find you two, Gabby?
I'm at Gabriella Dell.
And I'm at AJ_Caulfield.
And as always, you can find us at TYF Official, theyoungfolks.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, we're on iTunes. So go rate, review, let us know what we're doing well. If you want to let us know what we're doing badly, that's fine, but I won't take you as seriously. Next month, because as we've spoken of at length, apparently we're romantics, and it's gonna be Valentine's Day month, so we're gonna follow that trend and talk about some romances and how romantic comedies are alive and thriving when given the chance to be greenlit. So of course we'll be talking about Gillian Ross Pierre's Obvious Child, starring Jenny Slate, which is one of my favorite movies of all time and one of my favorite movies of that year and was criminally underrated that year. And then we'll also be talking about Gina Prince Bythewood's Beyond the Lights, starring Gugu Mbatha Raw, which is another stunner. So I'm excited for everybody who hasn't watched these films to watch them next month. Make sure to follow along and possibly join in the conversation in February. Thank you all so much for tuning in and have a good one. Bye.